Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. Deadpool wasn't he exactly surprised when he got stabbed in the chest for the 4th time that afternoon. A flick of the wrist, a glint of metal, and sink right through the suit. He looked down, bemused at the sword impaled through his sternum. It jutted out like a bad prop in a low-budget horror flick, gleaming red in the dim light of the ruined city. Well, that's a new Deadpool muttered to himself, twisting his head to catch the surprised look on his enemy's face. You missed my heart. Not that it would. Helped much, he winked. The towering figure in front of him, a faceless warrior in dark armor, jerked its sword free with a violent yank, sending a spray of blood onto the cracked pavement. Deadpool's body swayed for a moment, then crumpled in a heap. But even as his vision dimmed, he couldn't too help but notice the familiar flash of red light streaking through the air above him. Wanda said it again. He mused with a half-smile, darkness creeping in from the edges of his sight. Good for her. And then nothing. A blink, a breath, and then he was back. The sword was gone. His suit was miraculously unscathed, and the battlefield had reset as if nothing had ever happened. Deadpool stood on a rooftop overlooking the city below, which was once again under siege, filled with chaos, destruction, and mayhem exactly how he liked it. Déjà vu, he asked no one in particular, flexing his fingers as if testing out whether they still worked. Or maybe the writers ran out of ideas. Below him, Scarlet Witch hovered in midair, hands aglow with a red crackling energy that rippled outward like waves. She hurled blasts of chaos magic toward the faceless warriors storming the city, her face a mixture of concentration and frustration. Looks like it's soon that kind of day again. Deadpool quit, leaping from the rooftop, arms spread wide like a kid pretending to be Superman. 3rd time sent the charm.
Right.
As he landed on the pavement with a theatrical roll, Wanda shot him a sideways glance. Her eyes were filled with that same weary resignation she'd had during the last dozen loops. It's out happening again, Wade, she said, her voice tight with frustration as she unleashed another wave of her power, sending a dozen enemies crashing to the ground. Yeah, I kind of noticed, Deadpool said, casually decapitating a nearby soldier with a flick of his katana. But hey, 4th time is a charm, right? 5th, I lost count after the 3rd concussion. Wanda landed beside him, the ground cracking slightly beneath her boot. I've tried everything, rewriting reality, altering the timeline, you name it, nothing worked. Deadpool shrugged, swinging his katana lazily as another wave of enemies approached. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Wait, I am serious, Wanda snapped, her eyes glowing brighter with power as she took down another batch of faceless warriors. This isn't he just a glitch? We retrap.
I know, Deadpool said suddenly, somber in a way that made Wanda blink in surprise.
He didn't too usually break character like that, and I am not a fan of repeating the same bad fight choreography over and over. It's exhausting. Wanda shot him an incredulous look. You were exhausted. He raised a hand. I get it. You were doing most of the heavy lifting here, and you probably hate it more than I do. But hey, look on the bright side. We not dead. Her glare intensified. Wade, we die at the end of every loop. True, he said, grinning, but then we get up and do it all over again. Groundhog Day meets Battle Royale. Classic. Wanda didn't too bother responding, though, her eyes narrowed in thought as she hurled another wave of energy at their enemies. Deadpool, meanwhile, seemed content to slice and dice his way through the hordes, limbs flying with a flourish as if he were putting on a show for an invisible audience. This isn't too random, Wanda muttered, more to herself than to Deadpool. Something or someone is doing this. We were being tested. Tested like sats. Deadpool twirled his katana, decapitating another enemy. Woo, or maybe it's one of those escape rooms except with more stabbing. Before Wanda could respond, a deafening explosion rocked the battlefield. A massive blast of energy tore through the city, leveling entire buildings and sending shockwaves through the street. Deadpool was flung through the air like a rag doll, crashing into the side of a crumbling skyscraper. And there it is, he groaned as rubble buried him. That's how we die this time. Through the haze of dust and destruction, Deadpool could barely make out Wanda, standing in the center of the chaos, her hands outstretched, in a last-ditch attempt to shield them from the blast. Her power flickered, wavered, and finally collapsed as the overwhelming energy consumed her. Everything went black. And then just like that, they were back. Did we just? Deadpool began, already standing atop the same rooftop overlooking the city. Yes, Wanda said, cutting him off as she floated beside him, her face set in grim determination. We died again. He whistled. Boy, whoever saw running this simulation is gonna have a lot of cleaning up to do. This isn't a simulation, Wanda said sharply, her frustration evident. It's unreal, and we retract. Deadpool stared at her, then at the city below, where the faceless warriors once again began to swarm. So what's the plan? Scarlet O'Hara, keep blasting away until the big bad decides we've passed his little test. There's always a way out, Wanda murmured, her eyes glowing as she scanned the battlefield. We just have to find it. Right away at Deadpool said, nodding thoughtfully, and hear me out on this, we just give up, accept our fate, and spend eternity in this never-ending hellscape. Think of all the fun we could have. Maybe I'll finally take up knitting. Wanda didn't dignify that with a response. Instead, she reached out with her magic, probing the edges of reality itself, searching for a crack, a tear, anything that could break the cycle. But it was like trying to tear through a steel wall with a butter knife, impossible, frustrating, and infuriating. Deadpool, meanwhile, had wandered over to a nearby food cart that had somehow survived the destruction. I am not saying this whole endless loop thing is great, but at least we got snacks, he said, holding up a half-crushed hot dog. As he took a bite, a sudden jolt ran through him, a flash of memory, a flicker of something familiar, but distant. It wasn't his usual chimichanga-induced hallucination. No, this was something real. He blinked, trying to focus, but the memory slipped away as quickly as it had come. Wanda, he said, his tone uncharacteristically serious. I think I just had a flashback. She turned to him, eyebrows raised. A flashback. Yeah, like he gestured vaguely with the half-eaten hot dog. I remembered something, but it wasn't my memory. It was like I've been here before, or somewhere like this, and so have you. Wanda's eyes widened. You restarting to remember? Not on purpose, Deadpool said, tossing the hot dog over his shoulder. But yeah, I think so, which means whoever's behind this loop is screwing with more than just time. Wanda's magic flared as she focused her powers, reaching out to Deadpool. Hold still. I want to see if I can access those memories. Sure thing, Doc, Deadpool said, closing his eyes and standing perfectly still, arms spread wide. Just on to erase my love for chimichangas, that would be cruel and unusual punishment. Wanda ignored his rambling as she probed deeper into his mind, sifting through the chaos of his thoughts, memories, and fragmented consciousness. It was like navigating a storm, disorienting, filled with noise and nonsense, but beneath it all, there was a pattern, a thread that connected them both to this place, this loop. I see it, Wanda whispered, her eyes glowing brighter as she unraveled the truth. This isn't the first time we've been trapped like this. Deadpool opened one eye. There are fractures, she said, her voice tight with concentration. Fractures in time and reality itself. We've been pulled through them before, over and over. Someone or something is keeping us trapped, feeding off our power, our memory. What that's what Deadpool said also explains why my brain feels like Swiss cheese. Wanda frowned, her hands glowing as she pulled back from Deadpool's mind. We have to find the source of the fractures. It's not the only way out. Cool, Deadpool said, already swinging his cape. And then again, and while we were chatting, maybe we can grab some churras or something. The battle raged on just like before, but this time they had a plan. Wanda led the way, her magic flaring as she manipulated the battlefield, clearing a path through the endless waves of enemies. Deadpool followed behind, a whirlwind of violence and snark, cutting down anything in his path. As they fought, Wanda began to sense it, the fracture. It was faint, barely noticeable amid the chaos, but it was there, a tear in reality, hidden in plain sight. There, she said, pointing toward a crumbling skyscraper at the edge of the city. The fracture is in that building. Great, let's go poke it with a stick and see what happens, Deadpool said, already sprinting toward the skyscraper with reckless abandon. Wanda followed, her magic flaring as she deflected attacks from the faceless warrior. They reached the base of the building just as another explosion rocked the city, sending debris crashing down around them. We were running out of time, Wanda said, her voice tight with urgency. We have to break the loop now before it resets again. On it, Deadpool said, leaping through a shattered window and into the building. Time to break reality with a smile. Deadpool landed inside the building with a thud, rolling through a mess of debris and broken glass. He sprang to his feet as if the fall had been nothing more than a minor inconvenience. Wanda floated in behind him, her hands glowing, eyes locked onto the faint shimmer in the air ahead. The fracture in reality was barely visible, a crack in the fabric of space and time like glass that had been shattered but never quite fallen apart. "Look at that," Deadpool said, gesturing grandly toward the shimmering anomaly. "Reality is cracking. I always knew the universe couldn't handle this much sexy." Wanda ignored him, her focus entirely on the fracture. She could feel it pulsating, tugging at her magic, like a thread. This was the source of the loop, the tear in time that kept resetting their lives, forcing them to relive the same battle over and over again. "We need to be careful," Wanda said, stepping closer. "This isn't just a temporal anomaly. It's connected to something, someone powerful." Deadpool pulled out his katana and tapped the tip against the shimmer in the air. "Teresa, what you're saying is, hit it really hard." Wanda glared at him. "Remember, I need to stabilize it first. If we just destroy it, we could shatter reality entirely." Deadpool sheathed his katana. "Fine, I'll save the world, ending fun for later." As Wanda stretched her hands toward the fracture, her magic began to weave through the air like threads of red light. She felt the strain immediately. Whatever had created this tear had built it to last. It was a trap carefully constructed to keep them contained, resetting time every time they tried to escape. But now she was unraveling it. "Whoever did this is watching us," Wanda said through gritted teeth, her magic flaring brighter. "Say, reusing us." "Using us for what?" Deadpool asked, leaning against a broken pillar. "If it's reality television, I hope I get a good cut of the profit." "For power," Wanda said, her voice strained. "Each time the loop resets, they take a little more. My magic, your immortality, it's like we're their endless battery." Deadpool frowned, tapping his chin. "Oh, that sucks. Who knew being immortal could have a downside? Should we send a strongly worded letter to whoever sat in charge?" Just as the fracture began to stabilize, the entire building shook violently. The ground beneath them rumbled, and a deafening roar echoed from deep within the earth. Deadpool was on his feet instantly, katanas drawn. "That can be good," he said, narrowing his eye. Wanda's magic flickered, nearly cutting off as her concentration wavered. The fracture trembled, and the air around them thickened with pressure. From the shadows of the building, a figure emerged, tall, armored, and cloaked in the kind of darkness that seemed to swallow the light around it. "Chrono," whispered, her heart sinking. Deadpool tilted his head. "Kronos, isn't that a brand of fancy watches?" "He's a time manipulator," Wanda said, her magic flaring up again as she steadied the fracture. "It's strictly the one who trapped us here." Kronos stepped forward, his voice like the rumble of thunder. "You were never meant to escape this place. The loop is infinite. Your power belongs to me." Deadpool twirled his katana's buddy. "Let me tell you something about Deadpool. I don't do well with authority figures, but I do love stabbing them." Kronos raised his hand, and the air around them seemed to ripple, distorting time itself. "Your defiance is amusing, but futile. The loop will reset, and you will remain my prisoner." Wanda gritted her teeth, her eyes glowing brighter. "Say not this time." With a burst of energy, Wanda unleashed her magic, sending a wave of red light crashing toward Kronos. He raised his hand, easily deflecting the attack with a flick of his wrist. Deadpool, never one to be left out of the action, charged forward, swinging his katanas with reckless abandon. Kronos moved like a ghost, stepping effortlessly through time and space. Each swing of Deadpool's blade sliced through empty air as Kronos appeared and disappeared, always one step ahead. "Okay, that's just cheating," Deadpool muttered, his frustration growing. Kronos appeared behind him, a blade of dark energy forming in his hand. "Trey, you cannot defeat time." Before the blade could strike, Wanda's magic surged, wrapping around Kronos and pulling him backward. "We're not trying to defeat time," she said, her voice filled with determination. "You're breaking free of it." With a scream of effort, Wanda poured every ounce of her power into the fracture. The tear in reality widened, and the shimmering edges began to fray. Kronos struggled against her magic, but even he seemed surprised by the strength she was unleashing. "You can't," Kronos began, but his words were cut off as the fracture exploded outward, a blinding flash of light consuming everything around them. For a moment there was nothing, no sound, no movement, just a vast empty void, and then the world reappeared. Deadpool blinked, finding himself lying on the ground in the middle of the same ruined city, but this time everything was still. The battle was over, The faceless warriors were gone. There was no sign of Kronos, no tear in reality, no loop. "Well, would you look at that?" Deadpool said, sitting up and dusting himself off. "There we broke time. High five. Wanda." Wanda, still glowing faintly with the remnants of her magic, lowered her hand. Her face was pale and she looked utterly drained, but there was a glint of satisfaction in her eyes. Sace had sent over. "See," she said, almost in disbelief. Deadpool stood up, offering her hand. "Hi, so what now? You want to grab a coffee, maybe some shawarma?" Wanda shook her head, though. There was a faint smile on her lip. "We need to find out where Kronos went. He want tea, stay gone for long." Deadpool waved a hand dismissively, tack. Yeah, big bad guy, revenge, blah, blah, blah. "Let's at least take a victory lap before we go chasing him down." Wanda hesitated, glancing around the city. Everything was eerily quiet, almost too quiet. She could still feel the lingering presence of Kronos, the echo of his power in the air. But for now, they were free. "Just one lap," she finally agreed, exhaustion heavy in her voice. As they began walking through the empty streets, Deadpool couldn't help but break the silence. "So do you think we'll ever get a normal day off, like no time loops, no world-ending battles, just you, me, and a pina colada on a beach somewhere?" Wanda shot him a sideways glance, but there was no anger in her expression this time, just amusement. "Sorry, you know that's on our life, Wade."
"Yeah, I know," he sighed, dramatically, "Fred, but a guy can dream, can take."
They walked in silence for a while, the weight of the battle starting to lift. Deadpool, in his usual irreverent way, began humming the tune to Stayin' Alive, swinging his katanas like a conductor sent a baton. Wanda shook her head, but didn't stop him. After everything they'd just been through, a little absurdity felt almost welcome. "You know," Deadpool said after a few minutes, "poetry not so bad." Wanda, for a reality-warping magic user who constantly threatens the fabric of the universe. Wanda raised an eyebrow. "I could say the same about you for an immortal mercenary who never stops talking." "Touchy," Deadpool grinned. "We make a good team. Let's hope we don't have to do this again anytime soon." Wanda said, her tone more serious now. "Seems like we were lucky this time." Deadpool stopped walking and turned to face her, his usual smirk replaced with a rare moment of sincerity. "We realize, Wanda, and in our line of work, that's the closest thing to luck we..." Wanda nodded, though she still looked distant, as if her mind were elsewhere. "I know," she said quietly, "but something tells me this isn't tea over." Deadpool shrugged, pulling his mask down over his face. Hey, whatever comes next, we'll handle it. And if Kronos wants to try his timey-wimey nonsense again, we'll just kick his ass all over the space-time continuum." Wanda couldn't help but smile at that. "How'd you impossible, Wade? And you wouldn't have it any other way." Highly, Deadpool shot back, twirling his katanas before sliding them back into their sheath. They continued walking, the city bathed in the fading light of the setting sun. For now, the battle was over, and the loop was broken, but both of them knew that it was only a matter of time before the next challenge came, and when it did, they'd be ready. After all, breaking time had been just another Tuesday for them.